Hello boys and girls, in this video we're going to create this beautiful grid layout using HTML and CSS, and it's basically a 4-season layout. And if you hover over it, you can see the months are appearing with the dates, and if we leave, then the season is appearing. So let's go over this again: winter, spring, summer, fall. Okay. First of all, a quick disclaimer. This layout is actually inspired by one of the, let's say, best YouTubers out there when it comes to coding channels. It's inspired by Brad Travers's Media YouTube channel. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to his video. It's a really awesome video for the layout. Definitely check that out. The layout is also strongly modified, of course. You can also download the HTML and CSS part for this video in the description below, and I'm going to let you write out the JavaScript for yourselves. And before we get started, if you like this kind of content and if you like this video, hit that thumbs up on the video. And if you want to see more content like this, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell in order to get notified when I post videos like this. So let's get into the tutorial. Okay guys, so I basically just created a empty folder called grid layout for seasons. So let's get started with the HTML. So let's just create a file, index.html, a CSS file, let's call it style.css, and a JavaScript file, and call it app.js. Now let's get started with the boilerplate. Let's give this a title, anime grid layout. And let's get started in here. So within our body tags, I'm just going to create 2 section tags. And the first will have an ID of seasons. I'm going to create here 4 divs. So one div with an ID of winter, because winter is coming. And also I'm going to give this a class of season. Okay, so we're going to have 4 seasons. I'm going to leave these divs open. So I'm not going to put anything in them. I'm going to insert the HTML using JavaScript. Okay, let's replace the second winter with spring, and the third one with summer, and the last one with fall. Now for our next section, I'm going to give this a class of month. And within the section, I'm just going to type in here a few comments. So I'm going to need another winter section and a summer. Just going to copy them. So spring, summer, and fall. So we have in each season 4 months. So let's type in here a div with a class of, actually I'm going to use emit. I'm going to start over again. So class of BG and winter with a large W. And within here, I'm just going to have an H2 with a class of text anime and the title of December. And after this H2, we're going to create a paragraph tag, which will also have the class of text anime. And this is going to be from the 1st to the 31st December. I'm going to repeat this because we need in each season 3 months. So we're going to stay with the class of PG and winter for all 3 of them. And we're just going to replace this with January. This is also going from the 1st to the 31st. I'll get the space there. And then the last one will be February. And February goes to the 28th, and every 4th year goes to the 29th. Okay, so I'm not going to type it out now all of the HTML. I'm just going to copy it in for the rest of the seasons. So I'm going to copy this in. So it's the same thing, it's repetitive. Then comes spring, actually typing here, comments, spring, which also has 3 months in it. Then summer with 3 months and fall with 3 months, okay? Now let's link up our JavaScript, script source app.js. And also don't forget to link up your CSS. So let's type in here, link, and we're going to search for our link for the style.css. Okay, so that's basically it for HTML. Now let's jump into our CSS. First of all, I'm going to import a style for Google Fonts. And I'm going to now make a basic reset in the star and before and after. Okay, and here we'll reset our margins, 0, our paddings to 0, and we're going to set the box sizing to border box. Okay, now I'm going to take the body tag and give it a background. So the entire body will have a background of a hexadecimal number of 111. And for the color, we're going to use a hexadecimal FFF, so a white color. Now for the font family, I'm going to use the font family from Google Fonts, so the best fit. And also going to position this relative. Actually, let's stop opening this up. So, HTML, open it with live server, or down here, open with live server, and this is what we get. We close up the other one. And also let me resize this now. Okay, so this is basically what we have until now. Let me zoom this in a bit. And let's continue on with our CSS. Now I'm going to style the H2s, so this ones, and the paragraph tag. So H2s, font size, I'm going to go with 2.5 rem, and I'm going to change the font weight to 300. And also I'm going to give the H2s an all-around margin of, let's just say 0.5, 0.6 rem. Now for the paragraph tags, I'm just going to increase a bit the font size to 2 rem. Okay, so they're almost the same size as the H2s. Now let's take the class of month and then the divs. I'll use the classes there. I'm going to set the background size to cover and the background attachment to fixed. And I'm doing this to have that parallax effect. Oh, Jesus, not the background color, background attachment. Okay, we also need a few images. So let's create a folder called images. Said you can download anything from the description below. And these images are actually from Pexel, so you can either go to Pexel or download the images for the link in the description below. So this is our images. Okay, so now I'm going to insert the images in all 3 of the classes which have winter. So this one, and this one. So let's take the class of winter and let's set the background to the URL. And now let's go into our folder, image, and the first one will be winter, the winter image. You now already see the winter image spans over these 3. Now I want actually the divs to span in a row, So now let's set all of the divs to be displayed as flex. And flex is in a row direction initially. So I'm going to change the flex direction now to a column. Now in order to bring everything to the center, I'm just going to align the items to the center and justify the content to the center. Now we have everything set up in a column, but I want to have a grid system. So let's take the class of month again, and up here I'm going to give the entire section of month a height of 100 viewport heights, and this will take up the entire viewport height of the page. Now let's display them as grid. And now let's create a grid template column of repeat for FR. And this just means 4 times 1 fraction. So if we take a look in this with our inspect, you can see we have now, let's actually go up to the class month. You can see we have now 4. So we have now a grid system of 4 columns and 3 rows. Okay, so let's close up our inspection tool. Now let's actually give within each column and each row a gap. So I'm going to use here gap and 15 pixels and 10 pixels. Okay, so you can see now we have 10 pixels between the columns, and you can see the rows, but let me just take care of this. We're now going to replace it with summer, actually with spring. This was our second class, then summer and fall. And now our image would spread out through the entire HTML file, but I'm going to replace the images with, this would be spring, then summer, and the last one was fall. Now we also have in our HTML this class of BG. And I created this class in order to give this a blur effect. So let's take on the class of BG and let's type in here filter. So we're going to use the filter property, not filter. I'm going to use blur and 8 pixels for the blur effect. Okay, so this blurs out our background images. Let me just comment this out. And now let's take care of our grid system. So let me actually do this up here. So month, so I'm going to take each month and then the div tag, and then using the pseudo class of nth child, I'm going to select the first child and I'm going to spread it from 1 to the 3rd column. So I'm going to use grid column 1 to 3. It's going to go from 1 to 3. Let me actually go on inspect and show you how this works. So this is our first child, and it's going to go to 1, 2. Here's the second column, and here's the 3rd column. Okay, and let me zoom back in again. Now let's continue on with our grid system. Let's select month again, the div within the month, and let's go for nth child. Now I'm going to select the 5th child. Let me actually reset the zoom because this is horrible. So 5th child and grid template column again. And this should go from 2 to 4. You can see our 5th child, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now spreading from here, slapping over this column and ending here. Now let's go to the 7th child. I'm going to spread this from 1 to 3. Now I'm going to select the 9th child. And I'm going to spread this from 4 to 5. Okay? And all that we have left is down here. So let's select the 12th child. Imagine having so many children. 12 children, Jesus. Okay, so now our last child goes from 3 to 5. Okay, so that's basically for the grid system. Now let's create an animation for the text. And actually I'm going to create it. down here the blur effect. So let's first of all create a keyframe, and I'm gonna name this text anime. So this is going to go from 0% with a transform of scale 0, and then go to, and when it's at 100%, we're going to transform its scale to 100%, actually to 1, this meaning 100%. Okay, now let's use our animation, and for this I'm going to take the class of text anime. So you see this will affect all of our h2s and paragraph tags. So let's take the class of text anime and use our animation. So the text anime that we created, and with a speed of 1.5 seconds and ease. Okay, so we have now our animation as soon as we reload. Now let me actually take care a bit of the text here. So I'm going to give this a text shadow, or to pop out a bit of 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 3 pixel, and the color of #111. I'm also going to give it a background color of an RGBA, so with an alpha of 0, 0, 0 and 0.2 for the alpha, because it just has this light background to it. Just for aesthetics, I'm going to give this a border radius of 4 pixels, so it has just here a tinge of a border radius, and also give the all of the classes a padding of 0.4 RAM. Okay, so they were just going to have a bit of a padding. I'm going to also include a transition for the month. So up here, transition of 0.5 seconds and ease in. And this is going to help me when I'm going to implement our JavaScript. Okay, now for this part up here, for the seasons. So let's take this ID of seasons, and I'm actually going to type in here comment. Now let's target our seasons ID, and these seasons will be overlaid over our main grid system. So let me also take the class of season. So each of these seasons has a separate class of winter, with the ID of winter has a class of season. So I'm going to give them a height of 100% of their own container and a background color of red, and this is just to show you where they are for now. Now let's go back into our ID of seasons, and let's position it first of all absolute, and give this a width of 100% and a height, not $100, give me $100, and a height of 100 viewport heights. Okay, so they are basically overlaid now over our initial seasons. Now I'm also going to use the display grid here, and I'm going to create the same gap. So grid gap, actually gap of 15 pixels and 10 pixels. Now you will see our, not XP, pixels. Now you can see our grid system here for our overlay. Now let's go up here. I'm going to comment in our blur, and I'm also going to set our class of months, so all of our months, to a Z index of 1. So this should be over our overlay of seasons. But I only want the seasons to appear when we are going to use an event, actually 2 events of mouse enter and mouse leave. So for this, I'm first of all going to change our seasons to have a Z index of 3. So we're now with the seasons over our months. Okay, I'm going to also give this a transition of 1 second ease. And I'm going to just type in here comment of style text. I'm not going to style the text right now because we don't have any text in here. So let's get started with our JavaScript. Now we need two global variables. So let me type in here comment. So let's create a const of seasons. And now let's go to our document. I'm going to use query selector all and select all of our seasons classes. Okay, so if we console logs, let's just take a look at this. Seasons. And actually, let me open up the console here. So we're going to get this node list. Okay, let me comment out this console log. And actually, I should zoom in here a bit. So we'll see what happens. Okay, now let me get the next variable. I'm going to use a const again. And I'm going to grab onto all of our backgrounds, so BGs. I'm going to use document.querySelector again. Query selector all and grab onto all of the classes of BG. Now if I would console log BGs, then we'll get again a node list. And we're going to loop through this and through this. Now let's first of all take our variable of seasons. Let me comment out the console logs. I'm going to use a for each loop. And now let's create an arrow function. And let's say that for each season, and now I'm going to use a few if statements. So if the season has the ID of winter, so let's take a look in our HTML. So if the class, we're looping for these classes and we're checking if it has an ID of winter, then the season dot style, not get element style dot background color will change to a RGBA. I'm just going to copy and paste this in. 0 for the red, 0 for the green, and maximum number for the blue, and an opacity of 0.3. And you can see it's already taking effect here. Now let's go further on and let's say else if the season has an ID of spring, then the season should change its color. So it's background color with style.background color, and I'm going to copy in the RGB again. Now let's take on the next one, and I actually could just copy this. So else if season, if it has the ID of summer, then the color should be, let me copy in the color, this one, unexpected token, didn't close something up here. And now for last else if, for the fall, so if the ID is fall, then it should have this color. And this should be actually in a string. Okay, so now we have all of our colors in here. Now let's insert our text, and I'm going to go through the loops again. So let's go into the winter. So if the season has an ID of winter, then the season dot inner HTML, and we're going to insert now a text of winter. Okay, so as you can see, the text of winter is appearing up here. So I'm going to just copy this the next if statement. So if it's spring, then it should have the name of spring. And if it's fall, whoops. If it's summer, then it should have a text of summer. And if it's fall, then it should have a text of fall. And now let's go back into our CSS and start styling the text. So first of all, I'm going to increase the font size. So obviously this is far too small, to 6 rem. And I'll also give it a letter spacing of 5 pixels. And the text shadow, in order to pop out a bit, of 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 3 pixels, and hash of 111. Okay. So let's take a look at this. And now let's place it in the middle, in the center of the page. And for this, I'm going to display them first of all as flex. So display, not inline, but flex. And now let's justify the content to the center. This will push everything to the center, and we wanted to push it to the center of its container. We're going to use align items to the center. Okay, so now we have our text in the center of its container. And let me also give this a cursor pointer. This will not do anything, but it will help us for aesthetic reasons. Now let's go back into our app.js. Now let's create our first event. So actually we will need 2 events. One will be mouse enter, and another event for mouse leave. So we want something to happen when we enter with the mouse and when we leave with the mouse. So let's grab onto the season and add event listener. We're going to listen for mouse enter. And when the mouse enters, I'm going to use here a arrow function. We want the season dot style dot opacity to be 0. So let's try this out. You can already see it's changing its opacity. And when we leave with the mouse, so let's go underneath of this. So when let's go on to the season again, dot add event listener. And when we have mouse leave, then let's use an arrow function again. We want the season dot style dot opacity to be 0.5. Okay, so now let's try this out. So when I enter, the opacity goes away, and when I leave, it comes back. Okay, so we already have our effect here. So basically just taking out the colors with the opacity. These background colors and text that we set, in here for each of our seasons. Now in order to take out the blur effect, we're going to go back to the seasons when we enter with the mouse, and let's create here an if statement. So if the season dot id is equal to winter, and now I'm going to grab on to the BGS, so the backgrounds, because we set the blur effect to the backgrounds, and we're going to use a for each loop again, and we're going to loop through each BG. So I'm going to just use the singular and then an arrow function. This is actually a callback function, and I'm going to use again a if statement. If the bg.class list contains the class of winter, then the bg.style.filter, because use the filter effect, filter should be none. Okay, so let's try this out. if I enter with the mouse, the blur effect disappears, or the filter goes back to none. And if I leave, well, now we have to also implement this part in here when we're leaving with our mouse. So let's actually, I could just copy this and replace it with blur. So we want to have the blur effect again of 8 pixels. Okay, so let's try this out. So when I enter with the mouse, the background disappears and the blur effect disappears, and when I leave with the mouse, comes back, and also the blur effect comes back. So in order now to have also our animations working, we now need to create another variable, and I'm actually going to create it in here. So I'm going to grab on with a const, and let's just call it text anime. And let's grab on from the document with query selector all again, because I need all of the classes of text anime. Okay, so if I would console log this text anime, let's see what we get. Let me open up the console here. So console, you see we're getting all of our animations. It's looping for this 4 times. Not looping for it, but we will use loop for it. So we're getting our animations, all of our animations, to a node list. Okay, so we can use this to loop through it. Okay, now let's go back and underneath our if statement. So when we enter with the mouse, I'm going to grab onto the text anime and create another for each loop. And we're going to use for each text that we loop through, we want the text dot style dot display to be block. And when we leave with the mouse, so let me copy this in, then we want it to be displayed as none. So let's try this out. So if I enter, the displayed as block, and I leave, the animation repeats itself. Okay, now we have to do this for all 4 of the seasons. So we need to repeat this mouse enter for spring, summer, and fall. So let's go underneath of this and select both of them and type in here spring. So let's see if this works. Yep, spring is also working now. Now let's go down here and also type in spring. So for the mouse leave. Okay, so these 2 are now working. And now let's also do this for fall and summer. Actually, I could just copy this 2 more times and replace here spring with summer and the last one with fall. And now go into our mouse enter again, and let's copy this 2 more times and replace it, just the first 2, with summer and the last one with fall. Okay, so now let's try this out. Yep, it's working perfectly. So let's make it larger and try it out. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed this video, this tutorial. And if you did, then please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also hit that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post videos like this. Okay, so have a great day, evening, whatever, week, month. See you next time. Bye-bye.